They didn't fire me. They tried to erase me, and they almost got away with it until I sharpened every quiet habit I ever had and turned it into a blade. My name is Gus Merritt. I'm 64 years old, and for 29 years I was the man who made Larkspur Dynamics feel seamless. Not glamorous work, no ribbon cuttings, no magazine profiles. But when the boilers hiccuped at 3 in the morning, I was the one stepping into the thrum and heat. When a winter squall iced the loading bay, I was salting concrete before anyone slipped. When the data hall's chillers caught a burp of summer air and servers started to squeal, I was elbow deep in valves, coaxing the building to exhale. For days. That's all I had left before the pension rules I'd spent half a life bending myself around snapped into place and caught me like a safety net. For days, and Branson Hale told me I was no longer aligned with the organization's forward strategy, which is a fancy way to say, get out, old man. He sat at the end of a glass table in a room designed to look expensive, that minimalist kind of expensive where there's no art and a ficus stands in a white pot like a witness who won't speak. He didn't look at me when he said it. Branson was the kind of 30-something executive who wore sweaters that had to be dry cleaned and had carefully messy hair that probably took 10 minutes each morning. He stared at his laptop like the courage to fire someone lived on the screen. Operational realignment, he said. We appreciate your contributions, Augustus. Nobody calls me Augustus, I said, because spiteful little corrections are all that's left when a man reaches into your life with a shovel. Gus, then. He gestured to the HR woman next to him, a new face I hadn't learned, thin smile, neat stack of folders. Change is difficult, but ultimately healthy. Nothing personal. There are 4 words that sound like a lie even when they're true. Nothing personal, just business. The fluorescent fixtures hummed overhead, a sound you stop hearing after 29 years until you suddenly hear nothing else. Through the glass wall, I could see a row of young engineers I'd trained to treat the building as if openings appeared by magic and cold air fell from the sky. A few of them glanced up, then away. I wondered how many of them knew my name. I signed where the HR woman pointed. Severance, thin and shaped like an insult. Cobra paperwork. A list of items I had to hand back as if I'd stolen them. Badge, keys, tablet, the old brass master that opened every door in Building 2 and felt heavier than most newborns. When she asked for the keys, my hand hovered. Not because I wanted to keep them. Keys are only useful when a place still wants you. But because for 29 years the weight of those keys had reminded me someone trusted me. I unclipped my badge, studied the photo of a man with brown hair and a thinner face, and laid plastic and brass into her open palm. It made a clink like a nail falling into a tin bucket. We'll need your parking decal too, she said gently. She didn't mean to be cruel. Cruelty isn't always intentional. Sometimes it's just thorough. I walked out without security because they knew I wouldn't make a scene. Men like me do our rage in silence. I moved past cubicles where people were pretending to work and pretending not to watch, past the break room with the scuffed table where I'd eaten the same ham and mustard sandwich 1,000 times. My boots made a sound I'd never noticed on the polished floor, solid, exactly as loud as they were supposed to be. Outside, the November air had a damp feel, like cold bread. My truck started on the first kiss of the key. I sat a while facing the building. Larkspur had started as 2 squat rectangles of brick when I hired on. Now there were 4 glass boxes with brushed steel lettering and a logo that looked like a leaf someone had ironed. When I hired on, they said if you stick with us, we'll stick with you. I thought we had a deal. Back home, the kitchen clock ticked like it was counting someone else's seconds. I laid out the manila folder and read every line. They were good. They were careful. That's what I thought, until I looked at the line where they'd written my start date. They had me down as January 15th. My first day on payroll was December 15th. For weeks, for days shy of 30 years, I took out the old binders my wife, Nora, insisted I keep, a habit I teased her for when we were younger, a habit that had saved us more times than I can count. She'd labeled the spines with a neat teacher's hand. Taxes 2007 to 2012, benefits, pay stubs. You never know, she'd say, smiling over her glasses. A few pieces of paper can keep the world honest. Nora's been gone 8 years. Breast cancer, the kind that landed like an anvil and dared you to lift it. Larkspur's health plan covered more than most. The plant manager then, old school, a man named Dugan who wore flannel to meetings, told me to take every hour I needed. He came to the funeral. So did the machinist from Building 4 and the night janitor who likes to sing to himself while he mops. Back then, the company still felt like a place, not a brand. I set my hand on the binder and felt the grain of the vinyl and thought of her saying, "You never know." I slid out a folder and found the offer letter. December 15th. A starting wage that seems like a joke now. A signature from HR. A note scrawled at the bottom by Dugan. "Welcome aboard. We're better with you. You never know." I put the letter beside the paperwork and picked up a memo printed a month ago, a message from Branson to all Larkspur team members, promising clarity around pension calculations, honoring legacy commitments. A bunch of words that look good in a newsletter. I felt something tighten that hadn't tightened in years. I dialed a number I'd memorized 13 years ago when a drunk on the second shift decided firing the vending machine with a pellet gun was a constitutional right. Janine O'Rourke. She'd run HR long enough to be called a witch by men who lied, long enough to force a vice president to apologize for trying to sneak his brother-in-law into a position he didn't deserve. Janine retired last year. I'd heard she was doing consulting, teaching the next generation of HR how not to trip over federal law. She answered on the second ring with no hello, just, "Whatever it is, say it plain." "Janine, it's Gus Merritt. You were due to vest this week." Not a question. 4 days. They cut me loose. Paper says I started in January. You started in December. I still have the Christmas card Dugan made the year you and that boiler saved my hair from freezing. She breathed out in a sound that wasn't quite a sigh. "Do you have your offer letter?" "I've got everything Nora told me to keep." "You kept Nora. That's why you've got everything." Paper rustled on her end. "Bring me the offer letter, the last 5 years of pay stubs, any memos about retirement, and the termination packet. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. And Gus." "Yeah. Don't call them. Don't tip your hand. Let them think you're stunned and docile. These guys only understand 2 languages, money and trouble. We'll speak both." Her office was in a building that used to be a post office before the world started buying more online letters than paper ones. The lobby smelled like copier toner and coffee someone burned. She'd aged the right way. Gray hair short and practical, a face with lines earned from frowning at liars and laughing at babies. She took my box like a woman accepting a casserole from a neighbor, set it on a long table, and began to build a mosaic from my life. Offer letter. First pay stub. A printout of the HR portal's service years page Nora had made me screenshot annually. "Computers forget on purpose," she'd say. Janine clicked a pen. "So they moved your start date," she said. "They do it like that. Fuzz a number, press print, smile." She tapped the memo from Branson. "This helps." He promised clarity and then sharpened the knife. "What are my choices?" I asked. "On paper? You can beg. You can hire a lawyer who charges in 6-minute increments to write a nasty letter. Or," she slid a new legal pad toward me, "we can make a phone call to the federal government and tell them management is manipulating dates to deprive older workers of earned benefits. If it's just you, they'll sniff and ask for proof. If you're not the only one, they'll ask for names. You watch, there'll be names." She leaned back. "Gus, do you want to poke this bear? Nora once said that bravery is just doing the next right thing even when your stomach says go home. I want them to learn what it feels like when the ground moves under your feet," I said. Janine smiled with half her mouth. "Then let's get to work." She opened her laptop and typed an email with subject line, "Potential ERISA violation, pattern of benefit denial." She CC'd an investigator at the Department of Labor named Mead and attached 4 PDFs. "We'll give them a day. In the meantime, I want sworn statements from whoever trained under you and remembers your first day. I'll reach out." "And Gus," she said, hand on my sleeve, voice softening, "don't check your pride at the door. Pride can be fuel." I left her office and drove home past the chain-link fence around the old mill where my father once knocked dust out of his lungs every evening like he was beating a rug. I wondered what he would have told me to do. He would have said, "Don't let men who have never turned a wrench tell you your work doesn't matter." He'd also say, "Keep receipts." He was the sort of man who could hold 2 truths at once. The next morning, my phone vibrated with a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail because Janine had told me to. When I listened, Branson's voice filled my kitchen like a smell you can't scrub. "Gus, it's Branson. I heard you're asking around. I hope you're not planning to do anything rash. Let's keep this professional. There's been a clerical issue. We're looking into it. Come in Monday, and we'll straighten it out. That was for the record, the archive, the eventual courtroom. 20 minutes later, he texted, "Off the record. We can do a small discretionary payout if you sign a release." After that came a message from a number I recognized as HR. "Hi, Gus. We noticed an inconsistency in service history. Would love to chat about a mutually satisfactory resolution." The exclamation point made my teeth itch. Janine called. "They're scared." I didn't even have to send the thing. Deal's already had 3 contacts from other former employees since last spring. Guess who cut them loose just shy of vesting? "I'll bring donuts to whoever tells me," I said. "You already know. Different names, same cruelty. Mead wants to meet you tomorrow at 9. Take a shower and wear the shirt your daughter made you buy for her graduation dinner." My daughter, Ellie, lives 10 minutes away with a gentle husband and a boy who smiles like a sunrise. She called that night when she heard I wasn't going in the next day. "You okay, Dad?" "I've been better," I said. I told her the short version because you don't spill a bucket of rage on your child and call it love. "I've got help. You want me to come over?" "Tomorrow's fine. Bring the kid. I'll make pancakes. The good kind, with buttermilk. I'll need to practice talking about this without shouting." "Shout if you need to," she said. "Then teach me how to shout." Mead looked like he could blend into any airport bar in America. He wore a suit that didn't notice rain and a wedding ring with a nick out of it. He listened more than he talked, which made me like him. His partner, a woman named Ruiz with eyes like she could see through walls, took notes with a pencil so sharp it could have cut glass. I told them dates and names and tasks I'd done in storms. I told them about the night the generator wouldn't kick and I hot-wired a solution with a borrowed battery and prayer. I told them about Dugan and flannel and thank yous that used to be said aloud. Mead held up a paper. "You mind reading the line marked there and telling us if that's your signature?" I read Branson's memo promising pension clarity. "That's his signature," I said. "Mine's on the other page. I had to sign that I received it." "Good," Ruiz said. "Helps with intent. We'll need statements from co-workers who can verify dates and your work history. We'll subpoena the server logs and the HRIS system if the company stonewalls. We'll also need you to be ready for them to paint you as an underperformer who was let go for neutral reasons." I laughed. They'll have a hard time with that, considering I have 14 exceeds expectations reviews and a plaque they gave me at the 25-year mark after they made me train the 3rd facilities lead in a row. "They'll say the company changed," Mead said. "It did. That doesn't absolve fraud." "Okay." He closed his folder and looked like a man who just found the end of a thread and knew the whole sweater would unravel if he pulled. "You've done your part. Go live your life. When we need you, you'll hear the phone before you see it ring." Word got around. It always does, no matter how many NDAs you salt the earth with. A guy named Deke, who I'd taught how to clean a heat exchanger without spilling, sent me a text. "Boss, heard they jobbed you. If you need a letter, I'll write a book." The night janitor, Dion, the singer, left me a voicemail like a lullaby. "Mr. Gus, I see they got their hand stuck in the cookie jar. I'll tell anybody who asks what you mean to this place." A young engineer with nail polish the color of daring said in a DM. "I'll testify to the time you saved us from a server meltdown and no one thanked you properly because all the managers were home." I wrote their names down on a legal pad and slid it into the folder Janine kept calling the box of justice. Branson kept trying to pull me into a conversation that sounded like compassion and smelled like bleach. He called from his personal number and from the general line. He had HR text me smiley faces and exclamation points like that would wash the oil off a dead pelican. One afternoon he slipped, and his voice flashed sharp. "You think you can bring the government in and there won't be consequences? You're playing with your retirement, Gus. You're playing with your daughter's inheritance. You sure you want to do that?" "Branson," I said, as calmly as a man can say anything, "I am not playing with anything. I am telling the truth to people whose job is truth. If that feels like a game to you, I hope your team loses." The first search warrant hit the building on a Wednesday afternoon when the cafeteria smelled like chicken and black pepper. A friend texted me a photo of agents carrying boxes out the front door while the receptionist whispered into her headset. Everyone had a theory. Mine was simple. If a thing was done, it can be found. Inside those boxes were servers, laptops, printed audits, a slide deck that would later end up as Exhibit D in a courtroom with the air conditioning set to meet locker. The title slide said, Legacy Employee Transition Strategy. Underneath, a list of names. The bullet next to my name included the words pension burden and a number that represented me as a liability to be slashed. If you live long enough, you will be measured in ways that make you want to flip the table. Flip it anyway. Meade called. We'd like you to review something. I drove to the federal building, signed a log, surrendered my keys and phone, and sat at a laminate table under a clock that had been stuck at 4:17 for so long no one trusted it to tell time. Ruiz slid me a printout of emails. Branson to HR. Need to scrub service dates for all at-risk staff. It's easier to do this ahead than fight later. HR to Branson. We can shift Merritt's start month based on a system migration from 96. Shouldn't be discovered unless he has original documents. Branson, he's a dinosaur. He'll be mad, maybe squawk. But he won't sue. He can't afford it. Ruiz watched me as I read. Watched the hitch that happens in a man's breathing when he recognizes the texture of contempt. You okay? She asked. I'm fine, I lied. I'm just thinking how pleased my wife would be to have been right about keeping everything. You credit a lot to her, Meade said. That's good. When we get you your pension, take your wife to dinner. She's dead, I said, but I'll take her picture. She'll order the steak and make me eat my vegetables. Janine called that night with the satisfaction of a woman who baked a pie and knew it had turned out exactly right. They offered a settlement, she said. 50 grand. Sign a release. Promise to speak only of the weather when asked about Larkspur. What did you tell them? That your hearing aid must be on the fritz because you didn't hear them knock. We're not here for hush money, Gus. We're here for a precedent. Let's get everyone right. The next week, the story broke on the evening news, the kind of staccato voiceover that makes everything sound inevitable. Federal investigators executed a search warrant today at Larkspur Dynamics amid allegations the company manipulated service dates to avoid paying pensions. Multiple employees in their 60s were reportedly terminated within days of vesting eligibility. The camera caught Branson in the background, trying to look busy as he walked quickly across the lobby. He looked small. I know that's not generous. Forgive me. I'm not a generous man when it comes to people who smile and say nothing personal while they put a boot on your throat. Ellie sent me a video of my grandson holding a wooden block like a microphone and babbling in imitation of a reporter. Dada, he shouted. Breaking news. I watched it thrice and felt something easy open in my chest. Revenge leaves a body hollow if it's all you eat. You have to fill the rest with something sweet. The hearing where they unsealed the indictment looked like every courtroom on television and smelled like dust. Branson walked in with a lawyer who was very handsome and very doomed. The judge read counts: wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, falsification of employment records. Bad as it was, the worst part for me was watching a parade of names I knew: inspectors, managers, HR assistants, file in to sit with their backs straight and their eyes low. Many of them were good. Some of them were meek. A few of them were cowards. I have been all three in my time. When my turn came, I raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth in a voice that surprised me by not shaking. The prosecutor asked simple questions that felt like stones fitting neatly into a riverbed. Did you begin employment on December 15th? Yes. Did the company change the date? Yes. Would changing the date 5 weeks forward mean you were ineligible for full pension benefits? Yes. Did you have documents to show your original start date? Yes. Did the defendant know those documents existed? Not sure. Did the defendant send an email that used your name and projected the savings to the company if you were terminated before vesting? Yes. How did reading that email make you feel, Mr. Merritt? Like rust in my mouth. I didn't say that. I said, like I had been fooled on purpose by people who knew better. Branson's attorney did what he had to do. Tried to make me sound like a man with an axe to grind. Isn't it true, he asked, that you were let go as part of a restructuring that affected many roles? It is true that structure was the word they used when they tore mine apart. Isn't it possible that the date change was a clerical error? Anything is possible, I said, including me waking up tomorrow with hair. But one is less likely than the other. After, in the hallway, an engineer named Priya who'd sat at my trainings and once brought samosas to the crew on a double shift, hugged me so suddenly I lost my balance. You taught me how to listen to buildings, she said, tears shining. Thank you for teaching the rest of us how to listen to ourselves. The plea deal came faster than I'd guessed. Branson admitted what the emails made impossible to deny. He directed HR to scrub dates and greenlit terminations timed to save money at the precise moment it would hurt most. He cried. I don't say that to mock him. He had a family. His parents would be ashamed. He blotted his eyes with a linen handkerchief he will one day throw away because it will always smell like the day his life turned. He agreed to serve 18 months at a minimum security facility with an innocuous name that can't hide what it is. The HR director took 6 months in probation, plus a ban from practicing in her field. Larkspur's board did what boards do. They found somebody external to fire whoever couldn't outrun the stink, apologized without admitting fault, and sold the company to a conglomerate 2 states over. Larkspur's logo came down on a Tuesday. By Thursday, a new sign read Satalis Dynamics, as if polish can fix rot. The settlement conference they held with us, the ones hurt most, was in a hotel ballroom decorated to look like forgiveness. Round tables, cheap flowers, pitchers of water sweating rings. Lawyers everywhere. Numbers on notepads. I sat beside a man named Hank who'd done 26 years in procurement and a woman named Jay who'd worked the phones in dispatch so long she could tell a lie by the way a voice swallowed air. When it was my turn, the company's counsel, a woman with tired eyes, said, Mr. Merritt, on behalf of Satalis, we'd like to offer full reinstatement of your pension benefits, backdated to the day they should have vested, full health coverage, and $200,000 in compensatory damages. We know this doesn't replace the trust that was broken. Nothing replaces that, I said. No, she said, but this may keep it from being broken again. Jay leaned over to me and whispered, I'm going to buy a greenhouse and raise tomatoes till I die. I told her I would build a bookshelf. It's what I'd promised Ellie, and I keep my promises even when no one keeps theirs to me. The first pension deposit landed on a Tuesday. It felt like a letter from an old friend. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I opened my spreadsheet. Nora taught me to make one, and typed the number in the little green cell and watched the totals adjust like a recalibrated scale. Then I turned the computer off and went out to the garage where it smells like church. I'd already selected the boards. White oak, quarter sawn, no knots, pretty as a piano. I set the table saw fence and made the long rip cuts, the blades singing, sawdust lifting into the light like new snow. I cut dados for shelves, dry fitted them, ran a fingertip along the edge and felt the tiny fur of fibers stand. I glued and clamped and wiped squeeze out like I was wiping a child's mouth. I sanded starting at 120 grit, then 180, then 220, each pass whispering smoother, smoother. I finished it with oil that made the wood glow as if something inside had finally forgiven the sun. Ellie came by with the kid and that smile that used to live on Nora's face. You made this, she said, palms on either side like she was meeting a living thing. Your grandmother made it, I said, and when Ellie looked at me sidelong, I added, she made it when she taught me to keep paper, and she made it every time she told me not to let small people make me smaller. We carried the bookshelf into the living room together because some things require 2 sets of hands. The kid patted the lowest shelf, then crawled into the space and grinned up at me through the frame like he'd found a fort. No sleeping in there, Ellie told him, and he patted the wood again as if to tell it the rule, too. At night, the house is quiet in a way I've learned to like. I make tea and put a book face down by my chair and watch the clock tick, a truth no HR manager can delete. Every now and then my phone buzzes with a number I don't know, and a voice tells me what happened to someone else I used to know in the corridors of Larkspur. Hank bought a motorcycle and then decided he liked the bus. Dion got a better job cleaning a hospital where the pay is decent and the nurses laugh at his songs. Priya moved to a company where they ask before they take. Jay's greenhouse is a jungle. And Branson? He should serve his time and then get the work the world offers to a man who did wrong and admitted it. That's not my business. My business is to keep water from where it shouldn't be, to oil hinges before they squeal, to put wood together in a way that makes it stronger than it was alone. Sometimes, on my morning walks, I pass the old campus. The logo's different, the people are new, but the bones are the same. I can still tell by the sound when a rooftop unit needs a bearing and by the smell when someone's overcooked something in the break room microwave. I stand there a minute and nod to the brick, as if to tell the building I forgive it. Buildings, like people, are the sum of what they hold and the care they're given. I gave that place 29 years of careful. It gave me a story I'll tell until my voice goes thin. That story isn't about revenge, though everyone likes to hear it is. It's about a lesson Nora taught me without ever meaning to. If you trust paper and you trust yourself, you can make the world keep a promise. When the phone rang one afternoon in late spring and Janine's name lit up, I answered grinning. "We did it," she said. "Final consent decree signed. They're not just paying out to you and the others. They're changing their systems, independent monitors for 5 years, training for managers, audits. It'll be boring. The best justice often is." "You sound happy," I said. "I am. This is why you stay stubborn past 60. She paused. "You doing okay?" "I built a thing. I figured." She waited, then said, "Nora would be proud." "You keep saying that," I replied, voice rough. "I hope you're right." "I am," she said, and hung up before either of us could say something sentimental. If you need a last scene, it's this. A man in his 60s standing in a quiet garage, rubbing oil into oak with a rag that used to be one of his wife's shirts. The light through the window is gold as if someone spilled it and forgot to mop. The man's hands move slow because he's got time. On a shelf behind him sits a box labeled with a tidy hand. Pay stubs. He keeps it not out of spite, but out of respect. It's proof that he existed in a system that wanted to forget him. When the rag is damp with finish and the wood shines like a yes, he sets the rag aside and looks at what he made. And in the grain he sees a river still running. He doesn't forgive the people who wronged him. Forgiveness is too big a gift for men who sign their names to cowardice. But he does forgive himself for taking so long to learn what he already knew. That he is not disposable. That he is weight. That the keys he carried all those years weren't the only keys. There are others. Keys called truth and paper and the long stubborn insistence on fairness. They said it was just business. I say it was my life. And in the end, the life I built turned out to be the sharpest tool I owned.